Hi, my name is Sachal Vasandani, and I'm thrilled to be here on Alternative Venues for Jazz. It's great to reconnect with my dear friend and former manager Gail Boyd, who invited me on today, and I'm so thankful to be able to talk a little bit about music with all of you. I'm a singer, and I am New York based. Have been for many years, maybe too many years. But I was born in Chicago, and I always wanted to be in New York so that I could sing this music we call jazz. And I'm thankful that through all the years and ups and downs, I've been able to make some records. The last one was a duo record that was two duo records, really. One was called Midnight Shelter, and the last one was called Still Life. And they were both kind of pandemic records, melancholy covers of popular songs and some originals and some jazz songs as well that great piano player Roman Collin and I did. And we've been fortunate enough, kind of since we've been back in the world and touring again, we've been fortunate enough to play it live, which is cool. But it also was of that moment, right? Like a melancholy, sad, depressing moment. And I wanted to capture that because I was feeling all those things. The joy that I have now is part of uh, new sounds that I want to capture. And for those of you guys who have seen me sing, sometimes I'm singing with a trio, a lot of times with a trio, sometimes with a big band. I really love singing with big band, and I've been able to sing with some great big bands, and I'm trying to do that again. Right before the pandemic, I was able to do a Nat King Cole program that the great John Clayton arranged songs for. And we were starting to tour that after doing it at Lincoln Center. The pandemic put a stop on that, and then I did these pandemic records. But now it's time to get back out and celebrate a little bit. I think there's a lot for us as a society to be happy about. Uh, just the fact that we're living, for one. And also, I've taken this philosophy that we can all use a bit of good toe tapping music at all points in our lives, no matter what's going on. So I kind of want to do that, and I'm working on some projects for that. Matter of fact, I just finished recording and mixing a new project that is kind of a groove oriented project. Think like Frank Sinatra meets the Meters. And I'm really excited. A great group of musicians, including Nate Smith, producing that. So I'm excited for folks to hear that. We're working on bringing that out into the world, and I'm hoping when it does, you guys will all be around for checking that out. So a little bit about me. I like I said, I'm from Chicago, and I really enjoy jazz music. Kind of always have. My first exposure might have been in the womb with my parents. I think they took me to see Keith Jarrett when my mom was pregnant in downtown Chicago. But on my own, maybe rediscovering music outside of what my parents were playing, kind of as an independent person, might have been later in life, like 9 or 10, or in the bands of my youth. And I was a big fan of Count Basie, and Count Basie kind of got me interested in playing this music, and I played French horn. And then Ella Fitzgerald kind of got me interested in singing it. I had always sung around the house and in choir and stuff, but until I heard Ella, I didn't make the connection that you could kind of sing jazz music. I was kind of had it in my head that jazz was an instrumental music, and I was okay with that. And then, before I left Chicago, I had gotten a chance to see Joe Williams sing, and there was a great Chicago singer named by the name of Judy Roberts. And as I got a little older, I appreciated her wisdom and her experience. She was she was a piano player and singer, and I would go down to downtown Chicago and check her out, and even sit in from time to time. And I think we've sometimes take for granted the generosity of those people who come before you and show you the way. Maybe we look at it as a rite of passage, or like something that we are expected to do. But as someone on the other side, sometimes of the stage, I realize that it sometimes takes effort to bring in people and welcome them on the stage, because they may be terrible. You may not actually love what they're doing. But I was the beneficiary of so much of that generosity as a youngster, even when I probably didn't deserve it and was pretty terrible. So there's a whole pay it forward spirit in jazz that I think is one of the reasons that the community is so important to me. And throughout high school, I gravitated to different live musicians, and I saw as much music as I could. At the old jazz showcase in downtown Chicago, I was fortunate enough to see McCoy Tyner. Um, and I'm thinking maybe even Oscar Peterson, although now I can't be too sure. But Chick Corea solo piano, there's like a lot of things that I'm thinking about my youth, and they were in a way very formative for me, and I feel very lucky because later on I could call upon those experiences in college for music and in New York and elsewhere. So I come back to the idea that we have a privilege and a platform, but we're kind of nothing without our community. So that was something that I felt early on was something that I um, uh, wanted to be a part of, almost as much as the music itself. The music was soulful, and I had my own relationship with it. Um, but being part of a community has always been really, really important. And so for that, I always wanted to be in New York, and I always wanted to be around the music. Um, After high school, I went to college, and in college, I pursued music, and I met a great, great number of people. Um, and the community kind of widened and deepened from the external point of view in terms of great musicians. I got to meet John Clayton, who I would start a relationship with some years later. But I also got to meet people like John Hendricks and Wynton Marsalis and Roy Hargrove and Christian McBride, and anybody who would come to town in the Detroit area or Ann Arbor area, I would go see and try to sing for, or try to stay in contact with. Um, and getting a gig is part of it, but really it's about saying to someone like, "Hey, you matter so much to me. Your music is so influential to me, and there's kind of no one I would rather break bread with than you." And I hope I don't come off as a weirdo stalker, but let's spend some time together. And with Christian McBride, it might be like, let's go to the Borders CD shop and pick out your CDs. Or with Roy Hargrove or Josh Redman or John Hendricks, it was, hey, I'll drive all the miles to come see your show. And then, just to be able to see that show is one thing. And then if we're able to connect and chit chat a little bit afterwards, it's golden for me. I held on to those memories for a very, very long time. So that was kind of like the outer doing it musicians community that I really valued, but also the folks right at school, my teachers, including a great tenor saxophone player from Detroit named Donald Walden. He taught me so much about the bebop language in particular. I feel like he's kind of an unsung hero. And I feel like in the scene, people don't talk about him as much. And I'm sure that exists in every locality. There's probably some trumpet player in Cleveland that I don't know about, or an Atlanta based piano player that, maybe 20 years ago was, the main guy for locally. And it's true. When I go and travel, I meet folks. It's like, man, you're great. I was just in New Hampshire this last week, and I, got reacquainted with some musicians that I just hadn't heard in forever. Great tenor player that teaches and lives up there. And to me, he kind of had a sound like John Coltrane in a very, 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 a lot of tenor players come out of Coltrane, but his sound was just so warm and frankly amazing. We were singing like a ballad together, and it was, kind of like a Coltrane and Johnny Hartman thing. I was very, very moved by it. And there's a guy that I'd never heard of. So Donald Walden was pretty well known in the Detroit area, but I don't think outside of that he was as well known. For me, he was so influential because I learned a lot about bebop language. I was directed to where to transcribe. I was told when I was not doing well and sounding really sad, which is good. It's humbling. And I was just really, really getting my ass kicked every day. That was what it was about, and that was what the inspiration was to go back into the practice room. And the other inspiration was the friends that I had there, folks that were hungry or hungrier, that were generally more accomplished, that played their instruments better, that had spent more time at a conservatory type setting than I had. Um, and they were kind of the people around me that I aspired to play with and maybe even compete with. And because it's music, I try not to take an attitude of I win, you lose. But there is something to be said for a guy who can play the changes faster and more musically and has more language, and where you try to sing something at a certain tempo and it's not coming out right, then you look over there and the guitar player, the saxophone player, the piano player has already got it. There's something, at least in me, that's like, okay, I'm being reminded that I'm losing, so I got to get my act together. Um, and and so through those kind of, I would say, healthy competition, that's probably the best way to put it. I don't really believe in competitions, first place, second place, but I do believe in the idea that through inspiration, a little ass kicking, we can all get better. And that's really what the community served for me at the time. But more than that, it was about sharing passions and having conversations that seemed to go all night about a record that we had heard. And honestly, like, probably we were both real idiots about the record, but we were passionate. Okay, this Miles recording was not as good as that one. Man, relaxing, or like blah blah blah. Or why does Chet Baker play like that? Like, he doesn't have any soul the way Miles does. And like, no, you're wrong because you're not hearing Chet's pain and stuff like that. It's like, well, his range is this and that. Like this kind of stuff. We would have these discussions. They were highly hypothetical, and nobody cared except for us. But I feel like that is where community meets passion. And then when you go back into the practice room or on the stage, it fuels that you have to take a position. You have to take a position on the music. And then you begin to find a voice. You begin to find your voice. So I kind of interweave these two things from me because I've always found that without the community, music can be just my own like therapy, and it's totally legit. But without the community, it doesn't have a dimension of sharing and communication and reinforcement. And especially in a world that doesn't always value jazz, we feel like we're kind of even more bonded together because we appreciate this music that a great many folks do not. And that is our connection to some kind of higher being or higher power. So that's my little spiel on community. I really felt like I found it at the University of Michigan when I went to college there, and I'm so grateful for that. That was such um, an experience, and I give a lot of credit to the university and even the building itself. Going down to those basement practice rooms and just getting excited to start work. Maybe even camp out the night. Um, but also, it had to do with the people that were there, and who knows? Maybe if I was a student today at Michigan, it wouldn't be the same experience. I don't know. I also grew up in a time where distractions were here, but not so much here. And now I'm kind of guilty of being distracted by everybody, like everybody else, by all the needs to post and read and find out. And I get the impulse because I want to be part of that community. I want to see what this person's doing and that person's doing. But at some point, it's got a little bit of diminishing returns, and I have to say that's not actually helping me to be a better musician. I might get a little FOMO, or I might be able to check in and see something inspirational occasionally. But more often than not, we're kind of living vicariously through others, and or posting and thinking about what to post so that others can live vicariously through us. And for me, although I understand it, I'm not trying to like build my community that way, right? That community exists, and I want to reach fans. Um, and maybe I'll change my mind, but if I can do it in an efficient way, I would love that. I tend to be a guy who loves to get together with people and play music, sing music, talk about music, think about music, drink while listening to music, having fun, whatever we're doing. I like to be together. And when I'm not, I miss that more than any interaction on social. So that's why like spiel about college. Then I kind of came to New York, and like I said, I always wanted to be in this music. And the first thing I did was get downtown to Smalls and Metro. I lived uptown, so I would go to Cleopatra's Needle almost every night and try to sing, even if it was 1 in the morning. And it was at those kind of places that I met a lot of the community that is out there doing things. I got a chance to meet great singers like a Gretchen Parlato. I got a chance to work with um, great instrumentalists like a Jeb Patton or a Jeremy Pelt or a Walter Smith or an Ambrose Akinmusiri. Lots of people would come through there. We were just kind of all in the mush of this restaurant that was terrible in so many ways, except that they hosted us all for nightly jam sessions. Eric Lewis, people would stop by, Winton would stop by. It was quite a hang. Um, and I would try to go there every night and just make sure I sing whatever the song, because part of my feeling about being a jazz singer is that you need to be flexible, just like your colleagues in the piano world or the drum world are. And so I would go and sing whatever folks called. Sometimes it wasn't in my key. A lot of times it wasn't in a good tempo for me, but I was just thrilled to be singing, and I still am. So even though that was so many years ago, I love to still sing at the jam session. I love to get on stage with musicians who are double my ability or half my ability, and really just sing. That hasn't changed after all these years. I remember those feelings in a jam session of being humbled and thrilled and having all the adrenaline. And I hope if you're out there and you're kind of considering this, that like me, the best feeling for you is to be on stage and putting it all together and letting the music pass through you into somebody's mind and somebody's ear, and let them interpret what you're offering in their way. So now on the other side of that, I've made some records, I've worked with some great musicians, I've worked with some not so great musicians, I've had bad days. Um, and the fun thing is to feel that when the music kind of leaves your soul, your recording, your performance, you don't know how it's going to be interpreted, and you don't know how people are going to receive it. You might have a sense, okay, I'm singing this sad ballad, or I'm doing this burning thing that's like an homage to Charlie Parker. You might have a sense of how it's received, but you're not 100% sure. And people do interpret things in different ways. And so I've been thinking a lot about how to be as open as possible. Yes, preparation. Yes, working on all the technical things in my voice. Yes, hearing and reacting and responding to all the things that people give me on stage. But more than that, kind of being open to the idea that the music is so much bigger than me, even when I'm singing it. So to just be here and let the music pass through and see where it goes in people's mind's eye. That to me is now where I want my musicianship to go. So it's kind of exciting because I feel less and less in control the older I get, and that's kind of amazing. It's fine. It's keeping me humble, and I think it's kind of keeping me connected to the music in deeper ways than before. Not to say that before it was always craft, 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 but when you have the craft serving the art, always serving the art, that's when true excitement can come in, and that's when your your spirit can connect with other people, right? I I've been reminded of that quite a bit, quite a bit. And even with other musicians, we might get off stage and say, I didn't like the sound of that, or I played too much here, or I cacked a note there. And that's the craft talking. That's us wanting to be better craftsmen. And I will always want to be, especially with my voice. I spend a lot of time on technique, but it really needs to serve the art. It really needs to be able to get us as consumers, as consumers is not the right word, as as people who are listening and loving this art. It needs to be able to lift us up and for us to feel something. Might be different things different days, but to feel something. So that's kind of where I'm at right now musically in terms of a philosophy. And that manifests hopefully in this latest project that I've got. It's a song that I wrote right set of songs that I wrote kind of right before the birth of my son, who's now 10 months old. I had a I had focused time because I knew that once a kid was born, it was going to be tough to be creative. So I wrote all these songs, all the emotions. But like I said at the top of the hour, the thing I was committed to was like a great beat and a great, almost danceable energy. Hence, kind of Frank Sinatra meets the Meters, and I'm really excited for folks to hear that. And that I think is part of who I am. I write a lot of original music, and I also love to sing standards. I could do the entire Sinatra or Nat King Cole songbook happily with a big band all day. But I also enjoy writing, and I enjoy people to hear how all these influences come out through the pen and through the voice. And I hope folks are excited, are excited to hear these songs as I am to present them. You never know. You never know how folks are going to interpret them, but I have a good sense. I have a good sense that folks are going to like these and they're going to feel something. That sweet spot between coming out of the pandemic and kind of wanting to dance and wanting to get out there and yeah, and show the world that we're alive and we still have a soul and we survived. But also feeling like, hey, there's still stuff on the brain. There's still stuff that's bothering us individually, societally, whatever. For me, it's hard to speak about society because I don't want to be presumptuous, but I can speak for me pretty well, and that's what the lyrics are about. So I hope you guys are all gonna dig it and enjoy it, and that's kind of the new stuff. Um, I think to kind of like think about wrapping it up. Um, I'm not sure who is on or who will hear this, but I think one of the main pieces of advice that one of my mentors, a great mentor, and somebody who I've worked with in numerous capacities on a number of occasions, uh, that I'm talking about John Clayton. He he had told me once because I came off of a stage and I said something to the effect of, that was terrible. I was probably thinking about my craft, in particular the sound of my voice, which I'm always trying to get a hold of. And he said, you have, as an artist, this sweet spot that you're always dealing with on the stage. And he said it better than I'm saying it now, but basically, when you get on the stage, you're good enough to be on that stage for people to enjoy, to take in your artistry such that it is. And then when you leave the stage, you always have work to do. So the idea being that you are always good enough to be on the stage, and you always can get off the stage and continue to work. And so I hope that that actually applies to, that's actually helped me think about so many situations, not just my own practice and being on stage, but just kind of in life, and all the little negotiations and opportunities for self-doubt that come up, big and small, in all kinds of interpersonal relationships, whether that be as a singer communicating to an audience, as a singer communicating to a band who might be like, hey, what are you talking about? Like, I don't understand what you're talking about when you say bolero or rumba, or sing it in a style that kind of reminds me of XYZ. Um, you want to remind yourself that you should and always do have opportunities to be humbled and to grow. And that is fantastic. But you're always good enough to be where you are at the moment. So I thank John Clayton for that. I've certainly used that on student after student. And I feel like it's, for me, been so fascinating to approach life, but specifically the stage that way, to say, okay, I'm going up, got this baby. I've been up all night because he won't sleep. So my voice is, kind of wacky compared to what it was when I'm sleeping a normal amount of hours and hydrated and all that stuff. I'm going to get up on stage and I'm going to give you my soul because I'm good enough to be on the stage at this moment. And then when we're done, I'm going to go back to trying to work on the voice, work on the kinks, trying to have my craft support the artistry as best as I can. And I'll continue to do that for as long as I'm probably alive. So anyways, I hope that folks have found that little tidbit useful. I know I have, and I thank John Clayton for that. And yeah, that's kind of how I approach my records, my stage performances, and frankly, life. Continue to learn, continue to be inspired, but not with a lot of self-doubt when I get on the stage or try to move things forward. So with that, I want to just say thank you guys so much for thinking about having me on. My record is called Still Life. It's a duo with Roman Collin, great piano player. Both of us in New York. We made 2 records: Midnight Shelter, Still Life. Really thankful. The response has been positive. The duos are melancholy. Think like Bonnie Raitt, I Can't Make You Love Me, or Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel, plus a couple of originals. And to me, it was a joy to make those records. We worked through the collective pain of the pandemic, and now we're free to do some other things. Yeah, please visit my website. It's my first name and last name, sachalvasandani.com. And I've got, all the socials. Those are under Sachal Sings, first name and Sings. So Instagram and YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. I'd love to see you guys at a show and tell me what you think of the music.